Oh, there you are, YouTube.
Yesterday's hot day was followed up with a crazy storm. It was still raining this morning, and it's just making everything look so pretty, so beautiful, nice cool air, nothing to complain about today. But I guess, if I had to say one thing, that storm did make my basement leak a little bit. There's a little water down there. Not too big of a deal. Got the dehumidifier going. Probably use the shop vac to vacuum some of it up. Going on a mail run seemed like a perfect time to talk about a decision that was made in the Academy, the Oscars, a couple rule changes for this year. This was announced yesterday. I'm not too happy with some of these changes because I was hoping, and I don't know, maybe this is a bad way to look at things, it could be negative, I don't know, but because theaters aren't open, very few movies made it out to the theaters this year. So to me, that would result in a very unique Oscar season because there are so few films to choose from. And we don't know when theaters are going to open up again, so let's say perhaps they opened up in 2 months. That really wouldn't change the Prestige Awards films that would be nominated because they would be released coming out anyway. But many of those films, I believe, have pushed their year or their release date back a year, but some haven't yet. They're just kind of waiting to see what happened. But anyway, the Oscars, they have made a rule change just for this year. Just a second, gotta drop off some mail. So one of those major rule changes is streaming movies can now qualify for the Oscars, Best Picture, any of those awards. But the way I understand it, they have to have already intended and had a release date set in the year 2020, but they perhaps, because of COVID, cannot release out in theaters, and they didn't push their year back either. And I don't really like that idea because I thought having a more limited slate of films to choose from would create a more interesting Oscars. Maybe that's a negative. I'm sure, making it streamables allowed to compete, opens things up and creates more opportunities for people. But I just really like the idea of a movie like Birds of Prey, a movie that would never make it in really outside of costume, to be in these above the line nominations like Best Actress, Best Director, maybe even Best Picture. I mean, I think that could be a real possibility. Could have been a real possibility had they not changed the rules and if theaters, continued to stay closed. But I think some of them are going to be reopening, and if that is the case, that's not really affecting awards season releases. But I know some of those movies have already pushed their date back, so they've already, I guess will basically compete for the following Oscars. But anyway, just wasn't too thrilled with that news. The sound categories will be together. I'm not sure, into a single award now. I'm not sure if that is going to last beyond this year. I need to read into that a little bit more, but I think that is fine. People complain about the Oscar ceremonies being too long. I don't agree. I mean, I know we gotta go to bed and work in the morning and everything, but I've always liked a really long Oscar telecast. I love the Oscars so much. A 10-hour broadcast would be perfectly fine with me. But I do get it, because you have to stay up so late. And it is hard waking up in the morning. I usually have to wake up 5 a.m. the following day. It's very tough. But anyway, so I'm cool with that one. I like having both sound categories, but you know, I think this is fine too. It creates less recognition, unfortunately, for those individuals, you know, in the two different fields. But those were sort of the main two things that I saw. I know there are a couple other rule changes that are happening because of COVID, but the big one's streaming, which I'm not too happy about. And I also don't like that it opens the door to change what the Oscars is actually about, which is films that are released in theaters in Los Angeles for at least 1 week. And this is a small step that will probably turn into the Oscars allowing streamable movies, maybe TV movies. You know, it muddies things up a little bit more, where, you know, what is, I don't know, and you know, maybe takes away from the theatrical experience a little bit more. But I don't know. I'm sure it's a more progressive route, but I just am sad to see the theatrical experience slowly chipped away at, even though honestly I don't really like it that much, because people are very rude in movie theaters with being on their phones and things like that. I usually don't have a good time because I'm having to tell people to turn their phone off. But you know, in those perfect conditions where the people are being respectful to those around them, I miss that theatrical experience. I will miss that theatrical experience, you know, if it eventually does go away. So I don't know. It's something small that they're saying is just for this year, but let's say it works and is successful, it could change everything. And maybe that's for the better. I don't know. I just could be a little too old school, but that's where I am on that topic.
What is your favorite season? Awards.
You know, she right. And I'll probably see you tomorrow for more Hangout. There it is, our winter scene in April.